Another thing that I'd like to share with you is the concept of communication using modalities. How do we most effectively communicate with these folks? How do we most effectively communicate with each other? As we were going through the senses here, I pointed out that we basically have 6 senses. Hearing, seeing, feeling, vestibular system, tasting, and smelling. Most people live primarily in one of 3 of those. About 60 or 70% of the people in the world live in a world that is visual. Now, there's good physiological reasons for this. Most of the horsepower of the brain is in the occipital region, in the visual processing region. We remember in pictures. They see the world. And they reveal the fact to you that they see the world by the way that they use language. They will say things like, yes, I see what you're saying. And, that's clear. I see the point. The second group of people, which comprise maybe 20 or 30% of the population, are people who are highly auditory. Their principal sense that's out in front of the others, instead of being their sense of vision, is their sense of hearing. And auditory people reveal their auditoriness by the way that they speak, typically. And they will say things like, oh yeah, I hear what you're saying. That sounds good to me. Great hearing your voice. At the end of a conversation, I'll talk with you later. The third group is kinesthetic. Kinesthetic are, and this is a very small percentage of people. These are people who live in their feelings. This is maybe 5 or 10% of the population. And they will say things like, I've got a great feeling for that. Oh, that's a solid concept. Yeah, I can get my arms around that. The other thing that you typically find about people who are auditory, visual, or kinesthetic is that athletes tend to be kinesthetic. Why? They live in their bodies. So you find out, a lot of people are very, very good athletically. Their primary sensory modality is kinesthetic, their body. People who make a living writing or talking very often are auditory, primarily auditory. Now, this doesn't exclude the other senses. They're all there. It's just which one is front and center. And for some people are multimodal. Some people have fairly high levels of all 3, although that's pretty rare also. And auditory people can do auditory memory, which is very difficult for most people to do. And then visual people, you can very often spot them because visual people tend to stand up, have their chest out, their appearance is perfect. Everything, they very carefully considered their appearance because they're visual and they're imagining people are looking at them, and because they're looking at other people. Whereas auditory people, they tend to lead with their ear actually. You'll see them slouch a little bit, and they're listening to sound, and they might not be quite so perfect in every regard in their clothing, which is not to put them down at all. It's just and the same with kinesthetic people. So in our family, for example, I'm very auditory. I started in radio when I was 16 years old as a weekend DJ, and I'm back in radio again. I have 23 books in print in 17 languages on 5 continents, but I've written 35 books, and started writing poetry for publication when I was a teenager. I love sounds. I love words. I'm just highly auditory. The slightest sound in the middle of the night wakes me up. It's just that's the world I live in. My wife, on the other hand, is highly. It's okay. Is highly. We've talked about this in the public before. Is highly visual, and not so auditory. And one of our kids is highly kinesthetic. In fact, among our kids, our oldest is highly visual. In fact, she has a degree in graphic arts. Our son, our middle child, is very kinesthetic. And kinesthesia, being primarily kinesthetic and being ADHD, is like a real challenge because we don't teach kinesthetically. If you want to, our teaching systems are primarily set up to be auditory, which is not the majority of people. and which is why visual aids are becoming popular and things like that. But we don't teach kinesthetically. The old Socratic method, where you'd have a teacher and a student standing asking each other questions, that's as kinesthetic as it is verbal. But that's very rare. And our youngest is highly auditory. She got my genes, the oldest got Louise's. One Christmas, we're sitting around trying to decide all together, the five of us. The kids are adults now. They're all in their late 20s and through their 30s. And trying to decide where we're going to go, what movie we're going to go to on Christmas, because we were together for Christmas. And our oldest, the visual one, we've got the newspaper out on the table. And our oldest says, that looks like a good movie to me. Of course, she's visual. And our youngest said, yeah, that sounds like a good idea, the auditory one. But our kinesthetic one is looking at it, and he can't quite make up his mind, because he's got a picture and he's got some words there, but he has no sense of this movie. And so, he's like not quite sure. And so finally I just interjected. I said, how does it feel, what little you know about that movie? And he said, well, it feels okay. So, okay, well then let's go. Because his decision-making processes were kinesthetic. And similarly, Louise and I will have conversations. In fact, we had one just a couple of days ago where it was like this. It's funny. After being married almost 40 years, and she'll say, she'll say something, and then she'll say, do you see what I mean? And now, as a joke, I'll say, no, I don't see it at all, but I hear it. And then she'll say, no, seriously, do you see it? Do you see what I'm talking about? And because, it's like, she still doesn't get my bad joke. And finally I'll say, yeah, I see what you're talking about. And if I want her to know that I understand what she's saying right off, I'll start using visual language rather than auditory language. One of the things that's really interesting is that the unconscious mind is not capable of filtering the word you when it's told in the second or third person. And this is pretty much regardless of language. Because the unconscious mind can't filter it, you can tell stories in the third person that a person will, at a conscious and intellectual level, understand at the third person, but at an unconscious and deeper level, they will take if it's useful. And this is one of the really interesting dimensions of this. This is derived out of this, out of studies in hypnosis, basically. But one of the really interesting things about it is that the mind will acquire, it will take on what is useful, and it'll reject what's not. We all have very, very useful protective mechanisms within our unconscious mind. So to tell a story to a person that has an embedded you in it, in a third person, if they're in need of that, they will take it. And so, for example, when I told you the story about Shannon earlier, and I said, and this is how you embed a story. You tell a third-person story, and you use the word you. And I said, and we said to Shannon, no matter what you do, we'll always love you. No matter how you're acting out, you're a good person. No matter how difficult life has been, you have extraordinary strengths and resilience. That's what we said to Shannon. Now, all of you in the room heard that as my telling you what the story, what we said to Shannon, but at the unconscious level of your mind, you also heard those things as a personal message. And your mind chose to take them or not take them. And so there's a light side and a dark side to storytelling.